Welcome to the Rogue Wave Podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast and Twitch.tv/Rogue Wave Podcast. Download this immediately following the live stream on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere you can get your podcast fix. We are on it. Go to roguewavepodcast.com to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Tonight, the Snyder Cut sets bad precedent, Fifth Element retro review, and Comic-Con lives, but should it? I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort extraordinaire in crime. See, that's your new name, your cohort, my cohort in crime, because we're all wearing masks. Mr. Hassan, Lord of the Livestream Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Quarantine.
Yeah, my quarantine jokes
right?
are failing. Yeah, failing a little bit. I am definitely over the quarantine. I'm not doing anything rash, and I'm not being, stupid about things. But mentally, mentally, I am. I'm not even. I'm like checked off. Like that. It's not even checked out. There's just checked off at this point. But hey, we get new content coming in 2021. Last week we were here when
a lot of people say that as if they don't really realize how far away 2021 is. So we are not even in the middle.
No, I know
of 2020 yet.
I know.
So
I mean,
it's still ways off. That's over 9 months away.
I know. I know. Look, the good news is the summer weather has been helping. People are starting to actually socialize again, distancing at least, but there is some socialization going on. And hopefully there, things, kind of go away, perhaps until the fall. And then maybe the fall, it's not as bad as people say, because things change. News changes all the time. I'm just being optimistic. I'm not saying it's going to be, just, hopefully. And then we look back on this 2 to 3 month time in history as a footnote, right? That's Mr. Optimism. Footnote.
You're entitled to be optimistic.
Just try my best here. So anyway, last week we were here, and this segment is our Rogue Rage, all the rage in the pop culture world. And the only rage in the pop culture world right now, minus some, dog walker yelling at a comic book artist, which we don't need to go into in detail.
Yeah, let's not.
All the rage in the pop culture world is focusing on the Snyder Cut. Now, last week, we went on air the day it was announced that it was coming to HBO Max. We did have a story prep because we had heard rumors, and it was weird. It was one of those things where it's like, it used to be like, user X, 9 Shinobi 1 said on Reddit that he heard from a producer who heard from a, that the Snyder Cut was coming, and you're like, all right, yeah, this thing's not really coming.
Yeah, for the longest time, people were in denial that there was even a Snyder Cut, or that the Snyder Cut would actually be anything worth wanting to see.
Right.
That wouldn't even be different enough from the Whedon cut that it would be of any relevance, right?
Yeah. So for a while, it was one of those, folklore-ish, things that we would always love to hear about, but you'd never think would come to
probably
fruition.
never experience.
Right. But then rumors got a little bit louder and louder and louder leading up to Tuesday. And by Wednesday, it was confirmed it will be on HBO Max. So real quick, obviously, I'm sure our audience kind of knows what the deal with it is, but found this article. I thought it was pretty interesting. Just more specifics about it. HollywoodReporter.com. It will be an entirely new thing. Zack Snyder's $20 million plus Justice League cut. So it's something that, we had our guest on last week, Steve Ovecki, who asked, would Warner Brothers actually put money into this? According to reports, it could be anywhere between 20 and 30 million to finish up CGI, to finish up some scenes, and to actually bring the actors in for some audio re-recording as well, too. So that is a thing that generally happens where the actors have to come in and, maybe their lines are a little garbled, or the audio, the mic just didn't quite pick up the conversation. And they actually have to go and overdub their dialogue, and so they are going to have to go ahead and do this. The big thing I thought from this article that I thought was kind of interesting, and two things, and one will lead into the next point we're going to talk about, was they're thinking about doing it as 6 chapters. So maybe 4 to 6 chapters. So actually an episodic format versus a cut so to speak, an actual movie cut. Which I
it's going to be like a Netflix show.
Yeah.
Like a streaming. It's going to be like a season of a TV show.
So there's a number of reasons I'm against this cut being released in general. And again, we'll get to that.
It's a new take.
We'll get next. But if you're going to literally do something new, and that's what Zack Snyder is kind of reportedly saying, I think it's actually kind of interesting to do it in a way that is different. So I'm not just sitting there with a side-by-side comparison to Joss Whedon's, horrible mashup, which again, I'm not even blaming Joss Whedon for the mashup. The WB executives, this is supposedly he bowed out because of his daughter's suicide, which tragic in and of itself. But then there's a large contingent that kind of said that WB executives kind of,
the consensus is that they
well.
pushed him out so that they could get Whedon in because Whedon did Avengers.
Right.
And so Whedon is a big name. And then, characteristically, very, very much of the character of Hollywood, they believed it was the director or the name of the director or the brand that the director brought that made the product so prevalent and so well received.
Yeah.
And basically it's the material. It's always the material.
Right.
I mean, the director is a big part of it, but it's the material. The director's great for
marketing execs who want to spin why someone should go see this movie. But ultimately, if the movie's terrible, there's nothing you can do that's going to change that.
Which was proved by Whedon because he tried to do Justice League and it was not nearly as
and again, I don't blame. I'm not going to sit here and blame him for the outcome either. I think anytime you bring somebody in, 3/4 of the way to completely redo it, it's going to be a disaster.
I'm not talking about him so much as I'm talking about the mentality that he would make it popular even if it wasn't that good.
Right. No, I agree with that, and I think that's an unwinnable situation. He should know better, to be honest with you. I think at that point,
at the time he's having trouble with Marvel at that time,
that's
right?
True.
And he's having his own little PR kind of nightmare, right?
Wasn't he going to do like a Batgirl movie too? I think
something like that. But his ex-wife he divorced his
wife.
Well,
his wife came out,
and said that he wasn't really a feminist, and like a lot of stuff was going on. So I think it was a PR refuge for him to just jump into. It was better coverage for him.
Yeah,
it was like so he could jump into. He could jump into Justice League and have everybody start buzzing about whether or not Warner Brothers screwed over Zack Snyder, and he kind of gets out of that unscathed, Yeah. And then if it doesn't work out for him, it's studio interference, right? And if it does work, then he's a genius. I mean, it's win-win for Joss Whedon, no matter what he, what position he took with that.
That's the part of this that, to me, though, gets. Look, I understand from a marketing point of view. I know. Shout out to Joey Stone who commented on my Facebook feed when I posted a couple articles about this. What's not to love from DC's angle, from WB's angle. Basically take something that's basically finished. Invest a couple dollars into it, and drop it, and you get all the buzz. Because right now there's no new content coming out, so it's capturing a market right now in terms of anticipation and buzz that nothing else like it can.
Right.
I get it from that angle. But from a reverse angle, this is a movie that WB executives wanted nothing to do with when it first came out. I mean, and this is before Whedon I'm talking about. When it was first shown to them, I mean, it was, Snyder had made Man of Steel, which is a questionable Superman movie for a lot of fans. I know you liked it, right?
I
liked it. I'm not a huge Superman fan. I'm not a huge Superman guy, so
there's a lot about it I like.
Yeah,
but I didn't like it overall. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but they missed some.
I wasn't trying to be accusatory either. Like, you liked it? I was.
I get you. COVID. I'm just really easygoing now. I'm just so happy to be speaking to another human being that I don't really get. So even if you did accuse me, I'm like, it's okay, Mike.
Hassan's going to start his own podcast after this. Talk to me with Hassan.
Yes, please, somebody, anybody. There are fundamental things wrong with the narrative. I think the story is very flawed. I think the special effects are great. The other thing I did not like is that for some reason it was like disaster porn. You know, it was like why isn't Superman saving people? Like, you know, Superman should literally be losing these fights because he's trying to save these people.
Right.
And instead he's laying into the Kryptonians like he's been waiting for that his whole life, you know, to screw the people. So I got my issues with it, but I like the approach. There's certain
I wasn't
things
bored during it, and I wasn't turned off.
And I like looking
because again,
at
I'm not a huge
Superman
Superman guy, so to me it was entertaining to see a different take on him for sure.
I like seeing Superman through the eyes of skeptical people. You know, like, you know, after 9/11 type Americans, like, that's cool what you did, but any minute now you could change your mind and nuke all of us. So, you know, and I like that. I like this both about Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman.
The premise for Batman versus Superman is so good if you like take the actual outcome,
because there's a dubiousness about
right.
Superman. There's a like, you know, and it's the cool thing is we see him through the eyes of Lois. You see him at his job. You see him taking crap from Perry, you know, and so you're like, all right, if he was volatile and he nuked people, he would not be taking you know, crap from any of these people. But then also, it's good that the senators and everything were like, but what if Superman decided to change his mind? Like that, those are thoughts that we all would be having, right?
Right.
So that was interesting.
Again, interesting take, execution. Whew.
Well, the longer version of Batman versus Superman,
because that's what we needed in that movie, was it for it to be longer.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying it explains that movie. Now, that doesn't make that a good movie.
No.
But I mean, the longer version at least makes you understand what's going on, as opposed to the shorter version where it's not a good movie and you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's definitely something to that extent. But that's the funny part. We've had two movies that he's done in the universe. Both of them, you know, the arrow was pointing down at this point. And now all of a sudden, because of the mess that WB made in general, and again, this is only speculation because he did go through a personal tragedy, so I don't want to take anything away from that personal tragedy as the impetus for him being removed from the film, of removing himself. You know, but that being said, it felt like because of the critical response to that, and don't forget, Suicide Squad 2 was taking place within this universe that he kind of like built. Well,
okay,
didn't help matters either.
Right.
So to the point by Justice League coming out, it's like, you really think it's a good idea to have this guy?
I don't. You know, I don't really. Look. Let's break it down into the simplistic and non-artistic way of looking at all of this stuff. Nothing says success like success, right?
Yeah.
We found that out with George Lucas, right? George Lucas made the prequels. Many people did not like the prequels. They felt that the prequels were garbage. They felt that suddenly George Lucas and his contributions were garbage, and they were reevaluating how much creativity he actually oversaw in the original movies, because he was capable of making movies that bad, and as pertains to the prequels. The sequels come out. A lot of people don't like the sequels. A lot of people consider them soulless or aimless, you know, whatever. Now they
planless.
Planless. Well, that's what I meant by aimless. But so now they're reevaluating Lucas's contributions.
Yeah.
Right? Because nothing says success like success, and nothing says failure like failure.
Right.
Now, the thing is, you can't call Lucas a failure, and you can't call Disney Star Wars a failure financially, right? So we only have our own feelings to use as a gauge as to which is right and which is wrong. But that's the point. So Snyder, nobody's liking the Snyder vision, right? Mm-hmm. Man of Steel, dubious, but it was a success. Batman versus Superman was a mess,
Yeah.
Okay.
Disaster.
And so you got Justice League comes out. They swap for whatever reasons, because there's so many reasons given to us. And I do believe, at least for Snyder, that his family problem is the main reason that he left. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
He was pushed out for various other reasons, but as pertains to Snyder, he had the one reason to leave, and it was a good reason for himself and for his family. So then they bring in another superstar director to come in and save the DCEU, right? And that doesn't work. So see, nothing says success like success, and nothing says failure like failure. If that didn't work, now everybody's clamoring for, we wanted to get back to Snyder's original vision.
It's amazing. But to me, you know what? More so than
fickle.
just that. Yeah,
it's
more so than just
than
that,
amazing.
though. And this is an article that came out on The Beat a couple days ago. Releasing the Snyder Cut sets a troubling precedent. And I actually don't disagree with a lot of this. The gist of this particular article kind of focuses on the toxic fandom that kind of occurred. The fact remains, a loud portion of the release of the Snyder Cut fandom did hurt people. Critics and executives were harassed via social media. Some were even driven off those platforms. The history of harassment is well documented. Any community, including fan communities, is bound to have its share of bad apples, but it's hard to shake the feeling that by releasing the Snyder Cut, Warner's is actually giving in to the bullies. Toxic fandom has been a problem since long before the phrase entered the popular lexicon. Only with new technologies, it seems to get worse. What it really comes down to is an intense sense of ownership over one's interests. Some people's identities are so tied to their favorite TV shows or sports teams or video games, they feel compelled to fiercely protect these things they hold so dear. If that means targeted online harassment, gatekeeping, or even death threats, so be it. I'm not going to necessarily go into – I'm not going to disagree with anything they said there. The idea of toxic fandom, though, online, to me, existed well before social media. If anybody understood what message boards were, they were a cesspool of keyboard muscle comments where people could just be whatever they want to and say whatever they want to because they're hiding behind a keyboard and an anonymous username. You know, they're Shinobi 717. I don't knock any people out there who have a Shinobi avatar. That just seems to be what comes to my mind.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know why.
What are you saying?
I don't know why that seems to be popping into my head. Perhaps in 1997 I had an experience with Shinobi 1717.
Probably.
And 797.
That's a hard avatar to forget. It really is.
So again, it's existed out there. It's keyboard muscles, whatever.
Yeah.
What I'm going to go in where it's a dangerous precedent, and actually, I'm not even going to use the word dangerous. Actually, so really, they're talking about dangerous. This to me is going to fully demonstrate that social media is absolutely useless in determining what people want. You and I have had conversations offline, political conversations surrounding how if social media was really true, there'd be different people in offices, there'd be different people, and
right,
because what it's really doing is you're giving into a fandom that I don't know actually exists. And again, look, I'm talking totally bubble centric right now, but people in my bubble, they didn't want this movie. No one wanted this movie. Now we're kind of curious. There's a curiosity factor. Wow, they're releasing it. I might check it out for that lone reason. But there's no one that looks back on Batman v Superman and goes, now there was a movie that got shafted by critics. It was like,
right.
No, that was a bad movie.
We talked about this with Captain Marvel, right? And the get woke, go broke kind of situation. And then the movies, sometimes the movies flop, but sometimes they go on to make $1 billion. So it's not it's usually the product. It's not the online fervor.
Correct.
That's a gauge, because if it were, Rise of Skywalker wouldn't have been $1 billion movie because it was nothing but vitriol for Disney Star Wars leading into Rise of Skywalker.
True.
And we already had the Solo failure.
Yep.
To kind of buoy everybody into thinking that we had sway over how these movies were going to do, and obviously we don't.
Yeah, Solo failed because it came out 3 months or 5 months after one of the most controversial Star Wars. And potentially not a good film for at least 50% of fandom out there.
There was 150 reasons why it broke the scheduling. It broke their way of doing things.
Yep.
It came out too soon. Even if Last Jedi was And Last Jedi made $1 billion, right? But
I
even
agree.
if it was
even if Last Jedi was a critical, universally
Yeah.
praised, I think it would have struggled only because
it's too close.
maybe not. I might not have, but it was still too close. It was at that point you're like,
And
wow,
it's a Han Solo movie without Han
without
Solo
Harrison
in it,
Ford. I know.
you know.
I know.
So I mean, look, I like Solo, but I'm
Yeah.
saying all these things. Now, here's the thing. I think what's causing this is an absolute desperation for content.
Yeah.
We need to make this streaming service happen because it's HBO Max. We want to get this service off the ground. We need content. We don't have shows because nobody.
I hope that's what it is, though. I hope that's what it is, and it's not.
What else could it be?
According to this article,
it's not social media.
No,
what
but
else
it is.
Could
according to this article, and I wrote and I pegged this.
But you just said, I'm just going off of what you said.
Yeah.
You just said it makes social media irrelevant.
No, I hope it makes social media irrelevant. I hope that the aftermath of this shows why a studio should never give in to quote-unquote public pressure, because the public doesn't exist on social media. Social media, you don't know how many people and this is why I even I don't want to discredit the harassment angle. We don't even know if those people are real. We don't know if they're burner accounts. We don't know if they're bots. We don't know. I mean, I once was about to engage in a political argument on Twitter, which I never do, with a robot. I ended up looking, I was like, oh, this person has no followers and has no anything, has never posted. This is not a real person. Like, I had to actually go and check, because they just made such an outlandishly triggering statement to something I had posted once, and and the instinctive
which was
reaction
designed to trigger you.
Exactly,
right?
And the instinctive reaction then is to get me, a real person, to start reacting, which then gets other people reacting, which then gets other bots reacting, and it causes this fervor. That's the actual truth of all this. So again, I don't want to discredit the harassment angle, but we don't even know how much of that harassment was done by living people versus robots versus AI versus things that were designed to stop you. But what it does do, though, is, the WB executive is quoted in this article saying people seem to really want this thing. No, nobody wants this thing. There's no one that wants this thing.
That is not necessarily true.
In terms of percentages, the vast majority, at least that I feel, want this. And I think that's what's going to end up happening.
That's the same mistake that they're making now about whether a majority wants what the majority wants or whether they don't. I mean, we just don't know that. We'll know. The problem is we will not know.
Right.
Until it comes out.
I know. But that's the thing, though, right? Is it going to drive me to pay $15 a month to watch HBO Max? I don't know. Are they going to see the subscribers?
That's what they're banking on. But
I know that's what they're banking on, but that's what I'm saying. That's going to be the
I don't think they
result.
would be focusing on this if they had content.
Well,
they're trying to get HBO Max off the ground, and they can't commission television content because nobody's making any shows at the moment. Or they're just starting to make shows.
HBO Max effectively has 3 types of content. This was actually just launched today, this morning, that they broke this down. It's HBO programming, Max Originals, and library titles. Max Originals are meant to complement the HBO programming by taking swings outside of the usual comfort zone, which, ironically for HBO, I can't imagine what that means. While letting the HBO brand signify the quality programming the cable channel's known for. The new originals include titles for kids like Looney Tunes, comic book adaptions like Doom Patrol, and scripted shows like Love Life, which features it's not Anne. Who's Anna Kendrick? I kept wanting to say Anna Paquin, and that's not right.
Yeah.
Reality shows like The Big Shot with Bethany. The company's also creating a new film studio, Warner Max, which will create about 10 mid-budget films for the service each year. When I stumble on words sometimes when I'm reading, it's usually my fault. This was actually the article itself did not have real words in that sentence. I just wanted to point that out. The HBO shows and library content, HBO programming like Veep and Game of Thrones is included, of course, and Warner Media is folding in library content from the cable channels, including TNT and True TV. There's a little show called Friends, which is also going to be on it. And the Harry Potter. HBO has licensed the Harry Potter. That's
what I'm saying. Look at all the content they want to pack it with. They want to compete with Amazon and Netflix, right?
Yeah.
And they want to try to get the drop on Disney because Disney's kind of floundering with their content.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as diverse and as robust as the Disney content is,
Yeah.
it's still, you know, it's still a once over. You know,
Right.
you go through all these things once, and then you're like, all right, well, that was great. Let's like you have kids, so you can sit them in front of the TV and just replay Disney over and over again.
Right.
But for adults, you know, most adults aren't going to like.
Right now, it's
all right,
Power Players.
I've seen Maleficent, so,
which I actually got to hand it to my son. He managed to find the most obscure cartoon, and it's actually a pretty cool cartoon. It reminds me of like when I found Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before it kind of like broke big. It was like on like Sunday mornings, and I used to like literally get up religiously to watch Mutant Ninja Turtles, not realizing that I guess everyone was, because then they ended up putting on like
a cultural
daytime
phenomenon.
But there's a Cartoon Network show called Power Players, and that's our you know put on repeat viewing right now. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I guess we're going to have to wait and see till 2021. At that point, they're not going to have the leverage, though, of the quarantine viewer. That's the part that also kind of gets me. It's like, if it was done, right? If it was literally done, they could put it out tomorrow. But the fact that it's not going to be out until 2021 suggests they really are putting money into this. And they're going to put money into something based off of social media, which, again, is at least my standpoint, and I think yours as well, that it's not real. Like, it's not real.
No.
This is not the real pulse of what actually people are going to end up.
Yeah, and we'll see, and we'll find that out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a real gauge. I think every time you try to use the social media as a prediction model,
yeah,
you're gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
Because you just don't have the metrics that you think you do. It's loud voices in a giant room. That doesn't mean everyone's talking.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll give us something to talk about. So I'm not against it.
We are thrilled that he released that, because then if not, we would be stuck just doing retro reviews. That was the Rogue Rage. When we come back, retro review, Fifth Element. 5 reasons it was one of the greatest sci-fi movies to be released, and 5 reasons why it wasn't. When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast and Twitch.tv/Rogue Wave Podcast. Then it is immediately turned into a podcast that you can download on all major podcasting apps. Go follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google. Hit the subscribe button. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. All right, this is the final installment of our May mega movie blockbusters of yesteryear. We call it the Rogue Retro series. We've picked some retro movies that have come out in the past. We started off with all 3 Star Wars movies, all 3 Star Wars sequels in a row as one film. Reviewed all 3 of them. We touched on Iron Man, which was a pretty cool look back to a movie I have not seen since I think it first came out, but was so instrumental in launching an entire movie universe. Last week was Temple of Doom, which is a lot of fun, and we're going to file out the door of the May movie blockbusters of yesteryear with an infamous movie. No, I'm just kidding. A movie that is dubbed by some to be the greatest sci-fi movie of all time. The Fifth Element.
Wow.
Yes.
It does it a disservice. That does it a very big disservice, because it's...
So my own personal history with Fifth Element is one that I never saw it in the theaters. It was one that was on HBO constantly when I was a teenager, because it came out in 97, and I'm not a teenager, I guess. It came out in 97, and then it would always be on HBO in like the immediate years that followed, because I don't think it did very well in the box office. If I recall correctly, it's more of a cult hit. And I used to enjoy it. I used to just catch it mid movie, and I think it's a movie that I've watched in pieces, that if you totaled up all the pieces, I've probably watched it in full, 15, 20 times now, but just in different varying degrees of pieces. So it's kind of cool to go back. It was more nostalgic for me to go back and watch it only because it brought back that time for me, 20 years ago, where I would, catch it late night, than it was for an actual cinematic experience where it was fun. It was exactly the way I remembered it. There was nothing new that I took from rewatching Fifth Element that versus maybe say Iron Man, where I looked at it and go, boy, I don't know if some of those scenes could happen right now and kick off the Marvel Universe the way it was supposed to be done, or Temple of Doom, which, I made myself see it in a different light only because of what it was supposed to be. Fifth Element, though, I don't know. Am I not?
Fifth Element, off of a $90 million budget, made $263.9 million USD.
Okay.
So
it did do well.
Yeah. Just so we can have a little facts on our side.
Facts get in the way of a good story.
Yes, I agree with you. Look,
wait, hang on. Let me append this. Let me append my train of thought, though.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
It lived on in cult status way more than when it first hit the box office. It wasn't like you sit there and go, like, 1997 was the year of Fifth Element, to me.
I grant you that. 1997 was a crazy year anyway, but yes, I grant you that. It was a big hit, but I mean, also, I think one of the powerful aspects about it was that there wasn't any movies like that out at the time. We weren't doing sci-fi movies, very, very big in 97. And then we had The Fifth Element, and then we had Starship Troopers. There's, a bunch of stuff. Sci-fi.
I was trying to think. Well, you had Independence Day the year before. That was a massive success.
Yeah, but I'm saying
it's not the same. I know.
No, it was. But I mean, sci-fi was like it was between 96 to the 2000. That started a boom of sci-fi. Independence Day, Judge Dredd. Yeah. I think Judge Dredd was 95, right?
96. I thought. Yeah, but you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it was 95. Then Independence Day, we get about one of these blockbusters a year.
Yeah.
Basically. It wasn't the proliferation of sci-fi that we kind of often tend to see. Well, we don't see it now because comic book movies have taken over everything, but most of them are sci-fi movies. Most of them could be arguably called sci-fi movies. So it was kind of a big deal in its day. I will, full disclosure, say I didn't like it when I first saw it, me personally. So I get where you're coming from with it. It took a little while for me to get on the Fifth Element bandwagon.
I enjoyed it, but I'm not. I never sat there going like, "This is the greatest sci-fi movie of all time." Kind of.
No, I never.
It was campy and kitschy and colorful, and it was cool. Like to me it's the perfect, like, I'm awake at 11 o'clock at night. I'm 20 years old. What's on TV? Oh, here's Chris Tucker yelling at Bruce Willis. Awesome. Sign me up.
Judge Dredd was 1995.
Okay. Crack staff. I love it.
It's the internet. It's amazing. Have you heard of it? Have you used it?
It's
stunning.
I went on once, but Shinobi 717
he chased you out.
Just chased me out. I hate that guy.
Damn you, Shinobi.
or them or they.
Yeah,
whoever know what they are.
Whoever the Shinobi are. Like it's a small organization of.
There's a conference room of people just sitting there going, "We got him!" Hey, awesome.
But
they're micro-sized too. They're like microscopic. That's a new book.
The thing about this Fifth Element is there are a lot of things about the Fifth Element that you will not notice your first time watching it. Mm-hmm. And also, almost 30 years ago, you're kind of...
No, not 30 years ago.
Almost.
20. 23. That leans closer to 20 than 30.
Almost 30 years. When did it come out? 97?
Yeah.
In 7 years, it'll be 30 years.
I know.
So that's 30 years. Almost 30 years ago.
It's closer to 20. It's even, you could say 25 years ago, and that's acceptable. It's got to be within a 2 to 3 year range for it to be there. Anyway, 23 years ago, they didn't have, what you were going to say?
I don't care anymore.
The sci-fi, the CGI, it's very true, though. No, the CGI back in
I'm not even
97.
talking about the CGI. I was talking about something else. I don't know why you get stickler for these stupid things. All right, never mind. It doesn't matter. Long time ago, whatever. The F. I don't even know what point I was going to make now.
I forgot Gary Oldman was in it. And his turn as the bad guy is one of the highlights of this article I found to kind of bolster the review. Because, again, it's one of those movies to me that, again, some people are so passionate about, and I can watch it and just enjoy it on a complete surface level and be good with it. Like, there's nothing deeper for me, personally, to watch it. So I read this article from Screen Rant and said 5 reasons why it's the greatest sci-fi movie of all time and 5 reasons it wasn't. And one of the reasons they gave that it wasn't. First, I'll give you a couple of them. One, it's a cheerful glimpse of the future. Many sci-fi films choose to use monochromatic color schemes and dark and dingy. Very. What's the movie? 2049 just came out a couple years ago. Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. Blade Runner 2049. Like everything. LA is a deep cesspool and everything's horrible. This film. Everything was colorful. Everything kind of reminded me, color scheme wise, of Total Recall, the original Total Recall, like being on Mars. Like I kind of felt like to me, it had that same vibe to it. But that's one of the reasons they loved it. They said it's comedic. That's another reason why they thought it was really good, because it was actually really funny and it was nice. But one of the reasons that they gave for it not to be good, though, is the hero and villain never actually meet. Zorg and Corbin Dallas never actually meet. And Zorg, sorry for spoilers if anybody hasn't seen it, dies when the aliens blow up the ship, which is unheard of in the sci-fi genre, but is a change that makes this film set apart. So actually, I think they were touting that's a good thing. Sorry, stand corrected, but what do you think about? What do you think about that? I forgot Gary Oldman was even in it.
Get your facts straight. How do you forget Gary Oldman is in Fifth Element?
I just didn't remember. I just couldn't remember who that was as the main villain in the movie. And when I think back to Fifth Element, I never think about Gary Oldman was in that movie. I only think about
It was one of his first it wasn't his first movie, but it was one of his first becoming a mainstream. Plus, Luc Besson is his guy. The guy Luc Besson launched Gary Oldman. He put him in
Bram Stoker's Dracula, 92. That was Gary Oldman. That's the Gary Oldman.
That's not his first movie, though.
No, I know. But
that's not.
That to me is his first big movie.
But The Professional, Gary Oldman has had a lot of long-standing work, sure. Especially a lot of these things showcased his range of being able to be an actor. Mm-hmm. Just also True Romance, So, which you don't even remember he was in. So, it wasn't just Dracula. Dracula is when he kind of became, because of that movie becoming a success, that's when he hit the mainstream. But, then he went into niche. He started doing movies independent movies like The Professional, also for Luc Besson. And then he started getting quirky.
Let me see if you agree with this,
which is his role as Zorg in The Fifth Element.
The number one reason they said not so great is the plot is poor. It was already mentioned the film had too many cliches. That was earlier in the article. They said there's too many cliches in the film.
Too many cliches for what? In comparison to what?
Well, all right, I'll go up. Here is the
That's a bad critique.
Cliches can be a good thing when used in moderation, but this film went through several of them. Corbin Dallas is a masculine man who can't be defeated, and the villain wants to destroy, but with no clear reason why. Fans also watch the typical flying cars and futuristic rooms where the beds fold up into walls, which seem fairly basic for a film of this magnitude.
Fairly basic. It wasn't really that basic in 1997.
Yeah.
So that's a stupid critique. A lot of these critiques are contemporary critiques.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any freaking sense.
Right.
You can't judge it contemporarily. And if you do, then you put it in the pantheon of things that created a trope, not the things that suffer from X trope. You know, that's
As already mentioned, the film had too many cliches, but part of that is due to the fact the plot was poorly written. Storyline was as basic as they come, with the masculine guy helping the girl and saving the day from the evil villain. Yes, the hilarious dialogue helps make up for this, although fans felt it was still staring them in the face. There was so much more that could have been done with the film, but the storyline only worked to hinder its success.
No, hinder its $200 million success.
I mean,
that's off of a $90 million budget.
That to me really is a contemporary critique of it, though, because it's. I mean, to say that
it's like
just because you have a man saving a woman that you're now all of a sudden, a cliched. I mean, that's.
And she saved the world, so it wasn't even. It's not even like Corbin Dallas actually stopped the destruction of the world. He just facilitated it, but she stopped it. I mean, and she's pretty kick-ass that whole film.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
Well, this article is written by Rebecca O'Neill and was released this year. So yeah, you are definitely getting a contemporary review from a woman writer. And now maybe it doesn't delegitimize her
really care
opinion
about
on
gender.
It. No, because if the critique is it's a cliched plot because there's a masculine man that saves the girl, then yes, I think her gender may shape her opinion on seeing something like this, even though it's 23 years after the fact that it came out. She may be seeing it.
It doesn't invalidate how she sees it.
I said it did not invalidate the feelings. I'm merely saying that is one of the ways it might have shaped her opinion on it, though.
Yeah,
it's speculation.
We can't know that.
No, we can't. But I'm going to go a little bit bold here and say, calling a masculine man a cliche.
Yeah, but I mean, this segment isn't on her opinion; it's on ours, right? So we're just using it as a basis.
We're using it as a jumpstart for the conversation that we're having.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, like, who cares? Like, even if I didn't really like Corbin Dallas when I first saw him because I thought he was a John McClane ripoff.
Yeah, I did too. Actually, I'm not.
So I mean, it doesn't really. Let's not get into that.
It's funny. Chris Tucker and Lilu are the two. I mean, those are the two. Like one of those things where you say, "Picture Fifth Element." What's the first thing that comes in your head? I picture Chris Tucker. What a I don't call it a brave role for him or anything like that, but because it's such a gender fluid character that he kind of represents.
It's ahead of its
97.
Time. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is actually kind of a brave role for him at the time. I would speculate, especially not having been in a lot of movies.
Mention that in her article?
She did not. She said the film was funny. It's
contemporary, look, if it's fine to have a contemporary view for other contemporaries, like as to whether or not you should watch this film, right? If you're a 20 something and you want to know, if you're doing a vlog or an article about whether other 20 somethings should watch particular movies, right?
Yeah.
Then your opinion on it is absolutely valid, right? I don't know if you're gonna like this. I don't know, as a Gen Z, or whatever, whether or not this actually fits in the pantheon of things that Gen Zs appreciate or whatever. That is completely valid. I have no issue with that whatsoever. You know your generation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to give an overall evaluation of the viability of a product overall in history.
Yeah.
And what it gave versus what it took away, what it provided versus what it stole. Then you need a more in-depth analysis than what was offered, because that analysis is crap. And most contemporary analyses are crap because they deal with a lot of popular tropes of the now. And and are not even conscious of it, So you could say it's tropey because it's got a masculine man saving a woman, and that's a terrible trope. And that's a terrible trope for today. But tomorrow, the terrible trope will be criticizing things from 20 years ago for not having contemporary sensibilities. You don't know what the tropes are going to be. Tropes are going to change. So
Right.
maybe don't look at something that's from 20 years ago, 25, 30, whatever the heck years ago.
23.
And at least I knew how much money it made at the box office yet.
It's very true.
So anyway, don't judge it. Don't look at 1930s King Kong and say it sucked because the special effects are bad.
Yeah.
It's not. You're looking at it in a completely different lens. That doesn't gauge its value.
Yeah.
That gauges its entertainment value to you right now, but it doesn't gauge its worth in the history of cinema, in the history of of entertainment, of celluloid stimuli. So a lot of these contemporary reviews are terrible. They're not. They just are. They're terrible takes on films, and I don't really have an issue with this woman's opinion. I don't have an issue with her, with her liking or disliking the masculine situation. I don't have an issue with her maybe disliking or theoretically disliking Bruce Willis's contributions to the film, because at the time, even I didn't like it. I didn't understand it was a parody of the action hero trope, though, which I believe it is. I believe the take on that is he's overextended. He's over hyper masculine and hyper capable because that's a trope of the genre, and it is actually making fun of Bruce Willis's previous career as John McClane and Joe Hollenbeck and just about every other archetypical average Joe superhero that he played in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I took it as. But I had it took a few viewings for me to realize, wait a minute, this is kind of a joke, because everything in that movie is a joke.
Yeah.
And
it's funny. She said it's funny.
Yeah, she said it's funny. I would say, honestly, she's entitled. She's absolutely entitled to her opinion of it, and her opinions of it are not invalid, and they're not wrong. I just don't agree with her opinions because I don't think she watched it through the proper lens.
Yeah.
I think she's absolutely correct that as entertainment for today, it doesn't. It doesn't really cut the mustard for kids today. I think it still
does, though. I think it has a strong female character.
I'm saying from her perspective, I can understand what she's saying about it not cutting the mustard for today. But if she's making an overall critique of it from the era that it came from, at the time that, then this is an inaccurate assessment of the value of The Fifth Element, in my opinion.
Real quick, would you go rogue or go home on this movie?
Go rogue.
It's totally rogue film, right? Like, I mean, it just really kind of does its own thing.
Look, man, later in life, a little watching that movie is a treat. It is absolutely, and it is indelible. It is one of those movies that have endured. If you say Multipass, everybody knows that's from Fifth Element. Yeah. There's a lot. It has made a profound impact on the sci-fi genre. So
I like the very young Luke Perry. In the beginning, I think that's pretty good.
Okay. I've never heard Luke Perry being someone's favorite part of Fifth Element, but okay.
No, I like it. I didn't say favorite. I just said I like it.
Okay.
All right. When we come back, we go spinning the racks. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave podcast. We love talking about the rogues behind all the stuff that you love to watch and read out there. We are big fanboys of comics and graphic novels, and every week we bring you the inside info and the source material that will make its way onto the large and small screen. We call this segment Spinning the Racks.
Spin a rack. spin that round.
Tampa Bay ComicCon 2020 to go forward in July. This is from multiple sources, but the one I'm pulling from is the Spectrum News staff in Tampa. The Tampa Bay Comic Convention announced Tuesday. After 2 months of uncertainty, the Tampa Convention Center and Tampa Fire Marshal confirmed the TBCC 2020 will move forward with numerous health measures to keep attendees, exhibitors, guests, and staff safe. Here are the measures that we put in place. Temperature screenings will be mandatory for all occupants prior to entering the convention center. Those exhibiting temperatures above a certain level will not be allowed entry. They've increased cleaning and disinfection procedures in high-traffic areas such as elevators and escalators, handrails, benches, tables, handles, restrooms, and more. Hand sanitizing stations will be set through the pre-function space and high-traffic areas. Interior occupancy of the exhibit hall, ballrooms, and meeting rooms shall be strictly limited with one-way ingress and one-way egress of all interior spaces. Be held July 10th to the 12th. Should this happen?
I wouldn't go. But
if you build it, or was it if a convention takes place with no attendees? Did it really ever happen?
Yeah, if a tree falls in the way. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah.
It'll be good if we find out that it is viable and they can work. So, but because of my position as to be one of the people who would not go, I cannot in good conscience say it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some people kind of react and say this is ethically wrong to do it, and I don't understand the ethics behind it because
people can get sick and die. So I mean,
yeah, but it's not like you're not forcing people to go.
No, but by doing it, you're allowing for it's irresponsible for showrunners, just like it's irresponsible to open a movie theater right now. It's not.
If the area is not hard hit with cases and is part of the, I mean, what about the responsibility of the business to still be there? You know, I mean, theoretically, we keep operating.
Yeah, look at it this way: everybody, you open a movie theater, people come, and then a great number of them break out and get sick, and then they sue the movie theater for being open. Right now, you can argue you shouldn't have been there if you were worried about getting sick, but the argument probably wouldn't hold water. It's irresponsible.
Would. No, it absolutely would, especially if there's a notice. I think one of the things they're doing is there's a notification that, by doing so, you're entering at your own risk. I mean, that's one of the things that they're also going to have, and they're going to do this for not just conventions, but like a lot of.
So if you're going to put a notice up that you're entering at your own risk, that you're potentially making yourself sick at your own risk, then it is irresponsible. If the situation is dire enough for you to put a disclaimer warning on it. It is fairly irresponsible to. No, it's
responsible to acknowledge.
You asked me whether I thought it was or wasn't.
I just said
so.
I just said the ethics of it. I don't think it's ethically wrong to have to run a business. I mean, I think at this point.
Why ask me then?
So I could debate.
That's what you think.
Tell you that you're wrong. This is the whole point of the show. Why be in the show?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that the point of the show?
If we have the same opinion,
it's a good idea.
It's not good for the show. We have differing opinions. Don't you do anything?
Well, the whole idea is that I'd be able to finish my frickin' opinion while I'm making it. But it's okay. I don't really care about the subject. Let them go. Let everybody go. Open everything up, I say.
You know what, though?
Thin the herd. Thin the herd.
It depends. I mean, obviously, being New York City-based, we're at a different viewpoint. You especially being at a different viewpoint.
This is the thing I don't understand. Everybody acts like it's only happening there. It hasn't happened here. It can't happen here. It hasn't happened this severely anywhere else. But there's nothing that says it can't.
Right.
And so the attitude of it's okay, we can go out and play again is inaccurate.
But it's not as if they're sitting there saying everything is back to normal. Come back out here, and it's going to be exactly the way it was. I didn't say
it was. You asked me if it was ethically wise to have a convention, to have. There is no way that you can if the convention's any success, right, in attendance. There is no way you could tell me people are going to be responsibly socially distancing in a convention. There's no way. There's no way. There's no.
All I can say
way.
is if that's an opinion. First of all, it's subjective. It's projection.
It's an opinion from someone who's worked conventions for 20 years.
I understand that. I'm just merely saying that that's a projection. That doesn't mean that the people.
So
in
now
charge
hypotheticals aren't. Now we can't use hypotheticals.
I'm merely saying that.
Right? Okay.
By saying that, you're taking away the amount of effort that the convention itself may go.
I'm not taking anything from anyone. That's hyperbolic. I am saying I do not believe that you can socially distance successfully at a show, regardless.
I think there's going to be challenges for sure. Yeah, I think there's challenges.
Regardless of your efforts, I don't think you will be successful at doing it.
Yeah, I think an indoor
if you look at the beaches and you look at the parties, the beaches and stuff like that, in the bars, people are almost blatantly not socially distancing.
I agree. But that's purpose. Also, again, an outdoor event versus an indoor event.
Indoors, outdoors, outdoors is, that's what I'm saying. So they act like that in an outdoor event. Indoors, where there's no way for anybody to be able to socially distance to get away from it, it's not responsible. If you ask if it's responsible, it's interesting that they will do it. I'm interested to see what the results are. Yeah. I don't believe that they're going to successfully.
I think you're going to have some cases pop from this. I don't think there's any way you're not going to have.
I have to see. That's just all right. Never mind.
No,
it's kind of callous. It's just a kind of a callous thing. If you're saying some people, let's just say, take it to the level of severity, right? Some people are going to die.
I doubt it, but yeah, could happen.
There's no doubt. It's a deadly disease. Right, in order to gauge the viability of something,
and you decide that you have pre-existing conditions where it makes you more likely to die from it. Deciding I'm going to go to a Comic-Con today and not socially distance and not wear a mask is irresponsible of the.
It's a deadly disease, and there are.
But it's not the business. It's not the conventions. It's not being irresponsible of the convention.
Why?
Because they're not forcing you to come to your show. In fact, you are paying money to go there.
Right.
They are merely saying, "Hey, look, we're a convention. They're not Reed Pop. They're not and which, by the way, Reed Pop. It's not.
But
it's
see,
not as if
some of the conventions, some of the prior conventions before the shutdown were canceling.
Yes.
Why were they canceling?
Because at the time everything was.
But why would they cancel? Why would they cancel?
For fear of the unknown. For fear, because trust me, when
but what's the fear of the unknown? What's the fear of the unknown? What is the finish the thought? What is the
I am going to tell you. I'm going to illustrate it with an example, though. When I went to C2E2, there was no temperature screenings at the door. There were no socially distancing. We didn't even know what it was. We didn't know what the thing was capable of.
I know, I get that, but why did they close? Why didn't they?
Hang on, they closed because they
anyway?
did not know what the effects of the virus were because they didn't know how severe the virus was going to be. Now they do. And now they're allowed to reopen.
Even if you don't know anything about the virus and you don't know what the effects of the virus are going to be, why did they close? If they don't know anything, you not knowing anything is just
Are you trying to intimate the liability aspect?
I'm asking, why would you close down?
Well, they were closed down because a lot of the places itself were banning large gatherings. So you literally by law couldn't go.
Why?
Yes. To protect the greater nation at the time. Now we have more knowledge.
So then you believe then it should happen. So then there it is.
I believe they should be allowed to open. I don't think it's ethically wrong for them to open.
Okay.
But ethically wrong.
Okay. Great. Yay. I don't get it. I don't get the nature of this discussion.
I don't think it's ethically wrong for it to open. You do.
I do. So what?
I don't know. You're really going behind the curtain here from a debate podcast.
Because I think you're being callous about it. And I think you're trying to prove a point, prove why it is good as opposed to why
I didn't say good or bad. Okay. I didn't say good or bad.
I don't care whether how you parse it. I don't really care how you parse
whether
it.
I think something is good or bad, and that's not my point.
Whether it's you said it, you don't mind. You said it's not ethically wrong, right?
I don't think it's not
an ethical bad. that means
Right.
it's an ethical good.
It
Okay?
does not mean it's an ethical good. It just means actually, I would say ethics have nothing to do with this.
You asked if it was ethically right or wrong. That was
I
the
said
basis
people have
of your
said whether
questioning.
it's ethically or
You
ethically
asked
right.
me if it was ethically right or if I thought it was ethically right or wrong. That was the basis of your question in the first place.
Is that
Right?
no?
So now you don't
should
even
people say
think
they're
that ethics
ethically wrong?
apply. Now you
I
don't
don't
even think that ethics apply.
I think using the word ethically in this.
You used ethics.
Yes, I used it because people have said that. And I'm.
It doesn't. Okay, and that was the
statement.
basis of your questioning to me.
Yes.
That was the basis of your question to me.
Yes.
So asking me whether or not it's ethical, I have to make a decision as to whether or not I agree on an ethical basis, right?
Right.
So now, in the midst of me explaining to you how I feel ethically it is not a good idea, you now decide, well, we're not talking about ethics.
Do you think it's ethically right, wrong, or not a good idea?
If you said there's no such thing as a right or wrong, right, or a good or bad.
No, but I'm saying you use those terms of right and wrong in this discussion, and that's where
I said because you said it's an ethical good, and I say it's an ethical bad, right? That's how I simplified it.
No,
I said it wasn't a good
exactly.
and bad.
But I wouldn't call it ethically good or bad. I would just merely
then after that, you said we weren't even talking ethics at all.
I don't think ethics apply to.
So what do you think does apply?
What it comes down to is that the individual itself can choose to go or not to go. I think that it is responsible. It is the responsibility of the convention center to make it as safe as humanly possible.
So why are restaurants closed?
Yeah, but they're reopening. They're reopening. That's the whole point of this. We're not closed. We're reopening.
And do I think that they should? That we should be reopening?
I think at this point, I do think that we should. Because
did I ask you, did you think so? Or did I say did I think so? I do not think so. So in the basis of this questioning, that's my attitude.
I get it.
You disagree.
I do.
Fine. We can move on.
Next week. We'll think of something. Tune in. Love having you. Tune in on the Facebook feed. Comment, like, share. We'll see you guys next week.